Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the 10 Lost Podcast. I'm East Forest here. I'm in a remote location. There's actually construction going on outside, so if you hear some bangs and booms, well, that's just real life. But this week I wanted to answer some questions. We've been doing a lot of screenings and doing a Q&A with panels at some of those screenings that I've been at, Rada's been at. Actually going to be in Encino tonight, sold out, doing a panel with Dr. Bronner, the soap man, an extraordinary supporter of many psychedelic things. But we're doing things like this, and questions come up, and we often don't have the time to answer all the questions. So I thought we could do some of them here on the podcast. And I'm also doing, for our friends on Instagram Live, you know, if you have any questions, you can type them in that little question button there, and then I think they'll pop up on the screen, and I'll answer them here as well. Before I do that, it's important to let you know, just so you don't miss it, October 10th, so it's just in a couple days if you're listening to this in real time, October 10th is World Mental Health Day. And we have screenings in many places across the country. It's sort of a national activation. And it could be the only opportunity to see the Music for Mushrooms film in a theater near you on that date, potentially. So go to musicformushrooms.com and see if the screening is near you, get a ticket, invite a friend. What's also very special is just for that day, October 10th, in the theaters, we're including a live performance excerpt that I recorded at one of my ceremonies in Vancouver a couple years ago. And so I edited this together, and it's only in the theaters, and so it has a theatrical sound mix. It's pretty cool. So that's sort of like a little Easter egg that'll happen after the credits roll, and you know, that's an even more reason to get a ticket to go to the theaters on October 10th. So 10/10 World Mental Health Day. Hope that works out for you, and I hope you can see the film there. It's in other places at other times, of course, and all of that. It continues to play throughout the U.S. and Canada, and we're continuing to add dates. So just go to musicformushrooms.com and find a theater near you. Okay, so questions and answers. Like I said, we have had a lot of questions that have come up, and folks wanted to have them answered. So one of the questions is, let me see if I can bounce over here and read it. Do you think an obsession with personal growth through inner exploration is always healthy? Do I think an obsession with personal growth? Well, you know, there's a key word there, obsession, right? I think anytime we have an obsession, it's keying us in that perhaps things are a bit out of balance. And we can see that, like, in some ways, personal growth, or however you want to define that, you know, life is the point. What's that old Ram Dass story where he's talking to his teacher, Emmanuel, talking about how he gets high, and it's a bummer to come down. And Emmanuel says, you know, have you ever thought of taking the curriculum of life? Like, this is the campus earth. And so, in essence, everything is part of our edification and part of our spiritual growth, self-improvement in that way. Everything is a gift in that regard. As much as we might not enjoy it in the moment, that's sort of just the reality. But in that sense, if you find that you're focused in a way on self-improvement, and it feels like it's almost like taking you out of life, or it's about escaping, or it's about getting high in a way, and it's a bummer to come back, it could be a sign that it might be time to take the curriculum of life a bit more. Because that is the point. You know, if we hold the attitude, and I say if, because you don't have to, if we hold the attitude that life, that we chose to be here, or perhaps that we're here to learn, if you even want to try that on, just try it on maybe as a thought experiment, then everything that we're facing has purpose, it has meaning, it's all one great woven art piece, and we're working together in that way, co-conspirators of love. So in that regard, yeah, it can be a distraction, self-improvement in a sense. Sometimes, trying harder doesn't necessarily get us anywhere. Sort of a neural linguistic programming idea, like the words we use, like when we said obsessed, or words we use like I'm trying to do this. It's like, well, you are doing that. You are becoming in every moment. You are coming into form. And so, anyway, to answer that question, yeah, I think it can be a trap. Like anything can be a trap. And like any belief can be something that we hide behind or use in a way, unconsciously even, to not be free. And the name of the game is really to be free, to be in love, to be presenced, to be trusting, to be here. And when we do that, it tends to drop down the walls that we perceive of our individuality that maybe keeps us from feeling connected to all that is and to others. When we're connected to others, hopefully we love them. We want to help them. We want to be in cooperation with the world and with all that is. I'm going to pop in here on the Instagram Live. And again, if you hit the question mark there, you can put questions in live down there. It's much easier for me to see them than scrolling back through this, which turns out doing that at the same time as podcasting, it's kind of one of those brain things, which is hard to do, two things at once. You're asking also, so some people have asked this question. I see this question on screen about coming back to a concert in a certain area, whether it's New York or wherever. And of course, I would very much love to. So since we have the time here, a little behind the scenes. So at the moment, I don't have a live agent. And I have had live agents over the years. And right now I don't. And so if anyone out there is a professional music agent, and I say professional because it matters, I'm looking for help. I'm hiring. But at the moment I don't. So it's challenging to put together my vision of where I want to travel and what shows I want to do and how. Most of what I've been doing has been invitations. So I get invited to play somewhere, and if it works out, that's where I go. And so everything that I've been doing lately, it's been keeping me pretty darn busy, and I'm super grateful for that, has been invitations. And we often work collaboratively together to make the performance what will be the best for you, because I know like we're trying to cultivate something together. But that's within the parameters of what the event is. Sometimes it's a festival, sometimes it's a venue, sometimes it's seated, sometimes it's standing, sometimes, I'm always trying to steer it into what I think will be the best experience for us. So the short answer is, will I be in New York? Will I be wherever you're asking? It's like, maybe. I hope so. But what live dates we do have, like Nashville coming up, we're just announcing Seattle in a bit, and I'll be in Florida, Eudaimonia. I'll be at Wanderlust in Mexico. I'll be in Costa Rica for a reunion again. There are lots of things we're announcing and doing. It's all at eastforest.org, and that's where we announce it. The best way to find out about live dates is the newsletter, because we try to geolocate those to wherever the system thinks that you are. Here you go. Another question coming in here. It says, what is your favorite part of the Music for Mushrooms movie? Favorite scene? I really like the field recording scene. For those of you who have seen the movie, there's a scene, it's about, halfway in or so, and there's no talking. There's no music. There's just the sounds of nature. It's me doing this field recording. We actually recorded it up in the hills above Boise. John Dahlgren came into town, one of the cinematographers. And I just knew it was like, I was really inspired by this movie, Coda. I don't know if any of you have seen this movie. It's Ryuichi Sakamoto film. May he rest in peace. And there's all these wonderful scenes where he's just like kind of in environments, making sounds or recording sounds. And I found it beautiful and inspiring. I thought, we need something like that in the film, because not only is it a rest and a break from all the talking and the ideas, but it's a way of enlivening and putting a focus on nature itself. And that's one of the characters in the film, and it's part of the recipe that I think I'm putting out there. Music, psychedelics, ceremony, and nature. And so the best way, I thought, as opposed to talking about nature, was to show it. So we do show it a lot, but then to have a scene where like that's like the character, that's the main character that we're having the scene with, and we don't need to talk. It's just about the imagery and the sounds. So it was really fun too to do the sound design for that particular scene. And we shot that scene later in the film, and I had this idea, just to give you the full picture of it, whereas like I wanted to go up there, do field recordings, drive down the hill, go back to the studio, take those field recordings into the studio and make a song out of it in real time, have John film the whole thing, and that would be what you see in the film of like making a song. And that's what we did. So I mean, like the crow or raven, turns out it's a raven. People have corrected me on that. We recorded the raven, and then I went down to the studio and put that into my system and started just making like soundscapes around it, playing piano around it. And that became the song Raven Medicine, which is the first song on the official documentary soundtrack, which is out. So I'm curious if you've heard the new soundtrack, the new album, because the last layer of that was like, there's these moments in the film where my dear friend and mentor, V.C. Johnson, he speaks like in these Aspen sequences. It's like a dream sequence. And I wanted to honor him because he's a huge influence on my life and he's amazing. And we wove these moments throughout the film. And I took those moments, there's I think 4 of them or 5 times in the film, where he like says basically like a beautiful phrase, very Ram Dassian, but it's so much his own way, V.C. Johnson. And I put those into this song, Raven Medicine. So that's who you're hearing. He's the voice of 10 Laws too. So I mean, full circle for me. First song I ever did. And he has these, wonderful phrases like, love is the highest truth. Truth is the greatest good, but love is the highest truth. I mean, you can really chew on that one for a while. So yeah, that's probably my favorite scene at the moment. And I think I've seen a lot of people who resonate with that scene. It's just also like a breath of fresh air. Thank you so much for that question, Kate. And if there's any other questions, you can just pop them down here in our little live on the question mark, and I will be able to answer them. Someone else is saying, I wish you would hold a concert in open nature. Yeah, me too. I've actually I've had ideas about that for a really long time. One of the things I've wanted to do is 2 things. One was do a tour in like old Boy Scout and Girl Scout camps, because they have those old amphitheaters like by a lake or something, with the benches, and just bring in sound. And I thought, oh man, that would be so cool. That's one idea. I know it might be kind of a pain in the butt for y'all to get to. 2 was I wanted to do concerts on location in national parks, like in Chaco Canyon, in the Kivas, and then in like Zion, in like a canyon, and team up with the National Park Service and bring, and make it free and film it so that we can do these amazing concerts, but then sort of open it up to a larger audience afterwards, highlighting our park system, highlighting nature. These things take a lot of work, but they're ideas. I got a lot of ideas. The other idea I had was to hike together, like up to a super remote spot, like alpine situation. We hike there, and prior to us going there, I'll use a mule or a horse. This is actually an idea. And bring gear and a generator that we can like have far away so you don't hear it, and do concerts like that. Like you actually have to hike a few miles together to get there. I just thought that would be unbelievable. It's like almost like put a GPS marker down. It's like, okay, this is when it's starting. But listen, there's a reason why concert halls are awesome places to do concerts. I've been playing lately in some various theaters and concert halls, and I've been really enjoying it because they're made for that. And the sound we can really get into nuance and subtlety. And that's honestly what it's all about, is that subtlety and that nuance. You can have like these really beautiful moments that, in a quiet space where the sound is really dialed in. There's a lot of detail, and you're in a comfy chair and the lighting's cool. It's pretty awesome. And I've had a vision that I'm still working towards for a long time of a particular show that I'm trying to put together for you that takes a great deal of resources to do, but we're getting there. And it's a matter of part of my own like development as an artist, but it's also part of resources. Like we have to be able to sell enough tickets that I can have the revenue to do that show, and it's going to be amazing. It was inspired by some shows I saw, particularly a Sigur Rós show in 2005 on their second tour, and it just totally changed my life as an artist. I'm like, this is what's possible with live music and emotion and theatrics. And I come from the theater. Believe it, I don't talk about that a lot, but I was an actor and got an MFA in acting, and I the old school like theater, what we can do with theatrical elements to essentially make, it's like multimedia in a way. It's using all these different elements to take us somewhere. I mean, I've joked that I really dislike Las Vegas, like the strip and all that stuff. But I've joked that like I've wanted to do a Las Vegas show because one, I'd be reaching a lot of middle America and maybe people who aren't familiar with this kind of world, but the kind of things you can do theatrically to like it's just for beauty, to create hopefully a life-changing emotional experience with music and theater and sound and light. It'd be amazing. It'd be a really cool show. All right, let me since we're doing this live. Someone's talking about the Sphere. I mean, of course, that would be a wonderful creative play space to, oh my God. Yeah. So, hey, let's, if we can like 10, 20x the fan base, I think maybe the Sphere could make sense. I think it's 20,000 seats in there. So, yeah, it's a lot of tickets. But it'd be incredible. Never say never, right? People were asking about John Hopkins. Are you two? You two are very in tune. John, I love John, and I hope you've checked out his new album, Ritual. I think he described as the kinetic counterpart to music for psychedelic therapy, which I think is just so cool. I've done some counterpart albums like that. Music to Die To, Music to Be Born To. Sister records, sister EPs that came out together. And yeah, check out his record. John's a genius. You're asking about, someone asking, how about silent disco anywhere in nature? Totally. I don't know what it is about silent disco. There's nothing wrong with it. But I think I miss like the bass and how you feel that in your body. And then I'm like, oh, maybe people could wear sub packs, but that's kind of absurd. And it's fun, but I haven't actually performed, or maybe I did once, performed for a silent disco. But for some reason, it hasn't really drawn me artistically that much. But you never know. Open to whatever. I think I wanted to do something a little like that, but different, where it's a biofeedback situation. Almost like we all have really like an Apple Watch or something like that, a Fitbit, whatever, one of these Nike things, something that can give us real-time biofeedback about perhaps our emotional response or our heart rates or, different biometrics. And that data can be aggregated and either sent to me that can be translated into musical elements and or lighting effects. So I did something like this in a very small scale in a beta testing with Mikey Siegel, who runs, at the time, it was called what was it called? Group Flow, I think. He was part of consciousness hacking. I believe he's down in Ojai now. Fascinating dude and very tech heavy. But we were doing just that. Like everyone was all wired up and it got their heart rate, emotional response, and breathing. And it would activate a light that you could hold. So you could hold your heartbeat. And then you could hand your heartbeat this light and it would also have a subwoofer that was like going with your heart rate, which is an incredible thing to experience, like your own heart coming out of a sub. That alone blew people's minds. But you could give your heart to someone and then like the beat and anyway, we could aggregate this group of like 10, 12, 15 people, 20 people. There was a light in the center. So sort of like when there was an entrainment almost of the group flow, if there was one, you would see like all the heartbeats in that light and would it start to pulse as one. I got this data too into my system and I could change like their heartbeats into sounds, like any sound I wanted, like frogs or other field recordings I'd made, and I could play music to that. We also translated some of that data into like musical tones, and then I would play music to that. So I'm just trying to say like we could do interesting biofeedback things where it starts to be a very active participation with your autonomic system in a live space, which I think would be totally wild. In that way, it's like you can't just like flip a switch and go there. You have to like, the more you drop in, the more your body is responding, and perhaps, you're doing that in a group of people and things happen. Things happen. That's what's the magic of coming together. Honestly, going back to the movie, Music for Mushrooms, it's in the theaters now. Eventually, I'm sure there'll be opportunities to see it online, but it's so special to come together in a theater. And I know that's like rare these days. It's kind of rare for us to get out of our houses and and be somewhere on time. But when you feel together, when you witness together, when you cultivate a space together like that, that's magic. And that's a kind of medicine that we need these days more than anything. Question coming in: who is your biggest inspiration for what you do? If you hit the question mark down here, you can type in any question you like for a few more minutes before we close this down. I can't say there's one person or thing that's the biggest inspiration. I could speak about a few. One of my inspirations is Radha. It's my muse, and it's my relationship. And it's an inspiration for many reasons, but one, because it provides a kind of stability, and it provides a kind of authority for me to be in the world and speak from truth, or speak from my own. Like, it's just a kind of like it's like your relationships are the closest thing to you. And I've often said that's the crucible of most of our work is relationships for development. And so it's a lot of what you're doing, right? It's a lot of the time, it's a lot of your interaction. And so it's very real. It's like that campus life, campus earth. The things that are right in front of us are often the simplest and the most powerful. That is the playing field, is the Dharma. And so, you want to walk your talk, you got to walk your walk, and you're often walking your walk in your relationships and in private, right? That's that idea of that the real work is in the privacy of your own heart, as Ram Dass says, in Sit Around the Fire, which is also that clip is in the film. Speaking of John Hopkins. So that's a big inspiration for me, because the things I feel or that I wrestle with or that I'm giving and receiving are essentially translated out, those emotions and those feelings, through music, through words. I mean, like right now we're talking about it. Other inspirations for me, there's musical inspirations and there's nature inspirations. And then a lot of what I write about or inspired by is meta ideas, cosmic ideas. When I say meta, I don't mean Facebook. or Instagram. I'm inspired by Instagram. It's just the great questions that I feel like I'm often wrestling with or celebrating or I should say swimming with. And it's just these ideas of, the forgetting and the remembering about what it means to be alive and what we're doing here and letting go and letting go and letting go and reattaching and letting go and letting go. And so I often find myself, if I'm writing lyrics, that those lyrics are about that, or musically, the feelings that I'm exploring are around those ideas, that longing and that acceptance, that kind of thing. But musically speaking, people do ask, like, what kind of music do you listen to, or, that kind of thing. And I listen to a lot of different kinds of music. We have a big vinyl collection. Rada has a bunch. I have some. And when I'm listening to that, it's usually older stuff, like a lot of jazz. I love jazz. And I like certain kinds of jazz the most. But, I love that flow state. I love improvisation. I love the complexity. I love the inventiveness. There's just so much there. And there's so many different kinds to listen to. I listen to some forms of electronic music as well, because it's often sort of the bleeding edge of technology and what people are doing with music. So I love really inventive stuff in that space. Like anytime Max Cooper has a new track, I'm like, what's he up to? The Cosmos record drops, I'm like, I'd like to hear it. Same in the contemporary classical space. I'm just like to hear what modern composers are doing. And then, there's nothing wrong with throwing on Discover Weekly or what it is, and I'll I love to just hear new things. I love to hear new stuff and check it out. It's rare that I'm really, really into something, but when I am, that's an exciting discovery. Someone saying they saw the movie in New York City. They were so moved. Really appreciate that. And asking if the movie will be shown in Ireland. Working on it. We did show 20 minutes of it in my last performance there with Selective Memory. But it's actually playing in Scandinavia soon. And we are working on some more international dates. So, again, we've been adding like dates every few days here, and they're all over random little places. So get on the newsletter, just go to musicformushrooms.com and see what's going on. Let's see if there's any other questions coming through. I'm happy to have the official documentary soundtrack out. There are 2 Ram Dass songs that are live reworks. So, it's I'm Loving Awareness and Dark Thoughts, but they're both live. And I've been playing these songs live for a while now. And sometimes they're really cool, fun, new ways come up musically. And both of those, I think, feel pretty fresh. And there's also another track with Peter Broderick that we did a live improvisation for the solstice a couple years ago. And we pulled a song out of that. That was super cool because, we did it in my studio. And so we got to like have all the mics going through the preamps and all that kind of stuff. And we had 2 pianos and we filmed it. And so it sounds cool. For me, I get into those nerdy details about the sound. And it's Peter on violin and me on piano. And it's a really beautiful. I'm so excited to have that out and mastered and mixed. So that's called the Solstice Song. That's on the soundtrack. And then there's 7 more. It's all new songs. There's 7 more ceremony songs. And they were all live improvisations from ceremonies. And these are excerpts from what is going to be, hope this doesn't confuse you, a longer, long-form album that's coming in 2025. That's the 3rd volume in my Soundtrack for a Psychedelic Practitioner series. So the first volume is Music for Mushrooms. The second was In. And now this 3rd one, not going to tell you the title yet, but it's called Lovingly. A Soundtrack for the Psychedelic Practitioner Volume 3. And that's the mother album. And so a lot of that music is in the movie, and what's on the soundtrack are like shorter edited versions of some of those songs. So there's 7 of those on the soundtrack. It's just like the Music for Mushrooms album in 2019, and then there was a sister album called Spores. Spores is edited sort of like highlights reel of music from mushrooms. It brought it down to an hour. And it turns out that this 59-minute soundtrack album, Rod and I, when we were at the Maui Film Festival, well, let's just say it wasn't there. Never mind. But we had an opportunity to do a ketamine journey. And it turns out that the soundtrack is an excellent musical guide for a ketamine-assisted therapy session. It's a good length. It's a good flow. It's a good order. It's a good timing sequence of how the songs progress within the songs, too. I recommend that for your ketamine-assisted legal therapy sessions. Okay. So that's kind of that was a nice, fun discovery for us. It's funny because ketamine is not something that I consider like something I write music for. Like mushrooms are my teacher, my ally, and I am a supporter of them. Thank you, mushrooms. But Rod is a ketamine therapist, and so I had the opportunity to beta test a lot of my music in her clinic that she's working at in Boise, the Boise Ketamine Clinic, with a population that's really wonderful to work with because they're just like, not necessarily knowing the music and stuff. And it's like, well, is this working for them? That's good to know. And by doing that, I was able to join some groups and sessions, and then I got to have some amazing experiences with the medicine there and with music. And it is a very, very interesting space with music. It definitely, I think, music is needed in that space, but it's like ketamine's it's like a mimic. It's almost like it can be any medicine, and it's like space energy. It's sort of hard for me to describe. And in that way, it manipulates music in ways that aren't always consistent, I've found, but still incredible. But it's just to say, like, I don't know, if things are working for you in that space with my music, wonderful. I hear people use the music that I've composed in ayahuasca ceremonies, yet I am not, of course, an ayahuasquero or anything. I'm just... I think music that brings you inside, any music that is coming from the heart, in essence, can be a successful guide for you. It's about creating those sonic architectures and authentic spaces for you to have space to do the work that you do. And I'm always interested in hearing about your stories about what modalities, whether it's breath work or body work or yoga or births or art classes or sleep or none of the above, dancing, relaxing, working. It's always interesting. I'm seeing a comment now about ketamine experiences, and a therapist they're using it in yours. Well, that's great to hear. That's great to hear, because it's always nice when something's working out there for others. It's like, I was just talking to a friend about this morning. It's like you make let's say you make a little boat, like a little toy boat. You build the sail and you paint it and it's floating. It's like, oh, isn't this cute? I'm proud of my boat. And you work hard on it. And then one day you put it out there on the river or the ocean and you kick it out. And you're like, sort of like kicking it out to sea. The child has left the home. Have a good one. Have a good life. And they don't check in with you much, but they do check in with you through other people. And people might say to you, like, 10 years later, oh, I met your boat, AKA your album. And I just used it. Someone just mentioned something like, I had held on repeat while my mother was passing over 9 days, the album. And I'm just like, holy cow. I'm like, that boat I kicked out to sea 9 years ago, and I haven't seen it in a long time. And it's really lovely to hear from it. And you just feel proud of your child, but you don't feel like, your child, it's like another entity in a way. I don't feel responsible in a sense. I'm like, it's almost like it is the universe. It is all that is. It is what we all are in form, swimming and playing with us. And that's something that's just out there. So I think it's probably time to wrap this up. Thank you for bringing your questions in. And again, thank you for listening to the new album. Thank you for going out and watching the Music for Mushrooms film and for spreading the word about it. This is totally independent. We're just doing this together. We'll keep making opportunities for it to be seen and digital and online at some point too. So stay tuned, and we will let you know where that is. We'll do more of this. So hit us. You can throw us questions at any time, or comments. It doesn't have to be questions. And you can give me the answers, and I'll tell you all the questions that come up for me. It's been good hanging out. You keep walking, and we'll catch you soon. Oh, and I do want to leave you with a song. This is called, the one you're hearing, See You Now, Edit. It's from a farm ceremony. It's on the official documentary soundtrack. And it's one of those 7 ceremony songs of the 10 tracks on the album. Feel free to listen to the whole thing wherever you listen to music. I share stuff like this on the Patreon too. And it's a great way if you want to hear more music, unreleased music, advanced music, all sorts of live stuff that will never be released, as well as our monthly Zoom council. Thank you to everyone on the council for your support. Thank you for the community over there. Patreon.com/East Forest. That's patreon.com/East Forest. Met someone from the council at one of the Los Angeles screenings, and it was so sweet. I was like, oh man, I feel like I know you, because we've been doing this for several years now, and it just meant a lot. So thank you to everyone over there on all the different tiers and all of our different levels of the council. That's home base. Patreon.com/East Forest. And keep walking, friends. Chat soon.